So we ready?
Yes.
So I guess I just call everything to order for this planning commission meeting of City of Santa Clara held today, Thursday, February 9th, 2023. And our opening ceremony, we'll call on James Call to lead us in the pledge of allegiance and give the opening comments.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we're grateful for our many blessings and the opportunity we have to live here in Santa Clara. We're grateful for Mark was able to get the treatment he needed, and he's able to be here with us this evening. We ask you to bless those who are in need of thy blessings for their health, and Jim's dad and Curtis's family, and we pray that they can be healed. We ask you to bless us as we treat the business of Santa Clara tonight, that we can make good decisions that'll be helpful for our community. And we pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Well, this is my first rodeo, so I'll take care of those guys at another date for sure. Communications and appearances. Do we have anybody special? Look, boy, we got nobody in the audience.
We don't. We're waiting on someone to arrive for an item. We can talk about that in a second.
So we won't do our public hearing because there is none.
Correct.
And then looks like our item is not here. Item one, recommendation to city, item A1, recommendation to city council to consider final plat approval for Solis subdivision phase 1 located off Northtown Road and Rachel Drive, east of Belisol. Dustin Gar applicant.
He's the applicant with New Wave Construction, but Jared Bates is supposed to be here any minute to represent this item. We do have the applicant for item B1, the Soda Mix building sign. She's on the call right now. If you don't mind,
We'll just skip ahead, carry forward to planning commission approval for Soda Mix building signs at 3663 Pioneer Parkway, Suite 4. Jody Cox with Star Sign.
All right, thank you. And Jody, can you hear us? We're on your item right now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks for being here this evening.
No problem.
And I'm gonna go ahead and give a presentation, and then we'll see if the planning commission has any questions for you. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So Jody Cox is representing Soda Mix. They're asking for awning signs and signs not otherwise identified in our sign code, a blade sign. I've dealt with blade signs in other municipalities, but we don't have it specifically identified in our ordinance. So we have a section that allows for us to look at other types of signs. This was the Quenchit building, which was originally occupied this space. They moved out, I believe, December 23rd, just at the end of last year. I noticed a sign when I went by there. So as I stated, our sign ordinance, chapter 1744, states that awning signs and signs not otherwise identified are allowed in the planned development commercial zone subject to planning commission approval. Right now, this building's occupied by Aloe Urgent Care and Royal Thai. So they're proposing a total of 3 awning signs. And so that section 1744, if we go to 060C, it indicates that awning signs are allowed. They may not exceed 10% of the total square footage of the front wall of the building. So if you look at this right here, this elevation facing north, where my cursor is right here, signs 1 and 3 are the proposed awning signs that say drive-through, and then sign 2 is a blade sign. So I'm going to scroll down. These are the ones that require planning commission approval. So you see what's being proposed here, this view right here, but you can see it better here. There's the Soda Mix sign. It lights up. It's got a white light. And then we have the drive-through sign on this side of the awning, but it's on both sides of the awning as you proceed through the drive-through. And so those signs, the 2 awning signs, they're each 5 square feet that say drive-through on the metal awning. And then the Soda Mix blade sign, you can see how it sticks out about 3 feet from the face of the building. That's approximately 43 square feet in size. So on that side of the building, they're asking for 53 square feet of wall signage. The code, our code would allow them to have up to 55 square feet. So it's just a little bit under. You see the night view, you can see the internal illumination here for the soda mix. You can see what it would look like in the daylight, and then the new building being constructed directly behind it. And then over here, we have signs 5 and 6, which are the other side of the building. So I'm going to scroll down here. And this is what you see for 5 and 6. So this is an awning sign, and this is a smaller blade sign. So you see the awning sign right here. It says soda mix with a bite out of the cookie. And then we have the cookie as well with a bite out of it up here. So this is what you would see from the inside view, or I'm sorry, the south side of the building facing the residence behind the wall. So the soda mix sign here is a little bit, excuse me. So the signs here are a little bit bigger as they relate to the building. So in this case, the awning sign is 24 square feet, the soda mix plus the cookie. And then the blade sign here is 12 square feet in size. So they're asking for 36 square feet on this side of the building. Code would allow up to 55 square feet because it's the same as the other side. This sign right here is a directional sign that can be approved by staff. And then you see a sign here that says menu board sign. Cody's been working with the applicant on the distance requirement that Dominion would require. I think it's either 3 or 4 feet from their meters to the back of this sign. So as you know, Quenchit has a menu board. We've talked about this. That's on the wall of the building right now. That, and Jody could tell us, that was planned to be taken down, and then they can replace it with this 24 square foot menu sign that we just recently approved. We brought you back the menu boards and the monument signs for the PDC. But the signs in question tonight that require planning commission approval are the 2 awning signs plus the blade sign on the north elevation facing Pioneer Parkway, and then the 1 awning sign and blade sign on the south facing the residence behind the wall and directly south. So the lights, and as I indicated, these signs do include internal illumination with a white light. We've had this issue come up before for this building and for other uses in the area, such as Dollar Tree. And another one that comes to mind very recently is Royal Thai, that all lights or the light source to these signs be turned off by 10 p.m. By close of business or no later than 10 p.m. to be less impactful to those residents. Dollar Tree's agreed to that, Royal Thai, Aloe Care. Quenchit knew about it, and Soda Mix, we've made them aware of that requirement as well. And so what we talk about is, requiring that the signs be turned off nightly at the close of business or no later than 10 p.m. And so that's our concern, and we want that addressed. We do address it in the conditions of approval. And so planning staff is recommending that the planning commission approve. So this is a planning commission approval item. The proposed awning signs and blade signs for the soda mix located at 3663 Pioneer Parkway, Suite 4, subject to the conditions in the staff report. And there's a total of 4. First one's dealing with the signage up to 53 square feet total on the north elevation, 3 signs, and then 36 square feet total and 2 signs on the south elevation. And then turning the lights off at the close of business or no later than 10 p.m. for those signs on the south side of the building, and that the building permit be applied for and obtained prior to signs being placed on the building itself. So that's our recommendation, Chair. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. McKim. Any questions from the commission members for Jody?
Not for the applicant.
Anybody? We good? Yep. All right, looks great. Thank you, Jody Cox. Do we have a recommendation from the planning commission?
I'll move to approve the application for soda mix building signs at 3663 Pioneer Parkway, Suite 4, subject to the 4 items recommended or stated in the staff report.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first from a recommendation from Shelley and a second from Jim, and we appreciate that. And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or none? Carries.
All right, thank you.
Just a quick question. Is there any usefulness to talk about blade signs? I know when I've seen them, sometimes they're very restricted
Yeah,
for particular areas, but
I reviewed them as per some other sign ordinances that I've written for other communities. I could bring it back and add it to our sign ordinance. It's something I can do in the next few months.
is there good purpose to do that, or is it just as well?
I like identifying all different types of signs rather than going to provisions that say the planning commission can approve other signs that aren't listed here. So that's why we added menu boards, because we didn't have them. Sure enough, here's a menu board. And now blade sign, I'll go back and add it and bring it to you. And I might see if there's a couple others out there that we could address and put in our sign ordinance. It's better to have it than not to have it. So,
I think.
but if these were really big or out of
Will they be
out of
10%?
scale or
Yeah.
greater than the 10%, I'd say no. And so I
Well,
wouldn't.
I think it's a great use of the sign for
Yeah.
for that building and that type of building. I think it would never have thought.
They feel they need a little more visibility because Quench It didn't last very long. Well, there is, as we know, swing across the street, but I think there's market for both, especially in the spring and summer when we have everybody
Yeah.
visiting for tournaments and staying at the resorts. There's plenty of
That
business
chaos
for
out
both.
there when there's a ball
Yeah.
tournament going on.
Yeah, I think they'll do well. My understanding is they're marketed out of in Idaho, Utah, and either Arizona or Nevada right now. So they're an expanding company. So, and they claim, yeah, and you hear this all the time, sorry, the donut place, the one that lights on the hot donuts,
Oh,
Krispy Kreme, of course. We don't have one here. But the Krispy Kreme donut, they claim their cookies are warm and they'll also deliver them. And so, but it's cookies, drinks, and ice cream, right? We've seen that's popular right now. So
Huge market.
we can go ahead and get started with item number 2. I think I can answer most questions. Hopefully Jared Bates joins us if needed.
Okay, so we can do that. Let's go on into item recommendation, city council, item A, section 1. Final plat approval for Solis subdivision, phase 1, located off of Northtown Road and Rachel Drive, east of Bella Sol subdivision. Destin Gar applicant, New Wave Construction.
Thank you, Chair Hendrickson. I was going to pull up the plat drawing here so the planning commission can see it. As you know, this project's been underway for a while. There's been a lot of work being done, site improvements, grading, utilities and other things going on for approximately 1 year. City staff's excited to see this moving forward. The final plat phase 1 includes 21 single family lots on 5.62 acres. As you know, this is the R110 RA mixed lot size zone. So we have varied lot sizes, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, and 10,000 square feet. The final plat has lots that range in size from just over 7,000 square feet to just over 13,000 square feet. So there's quite a variety of lot sizes here. This project went through the rezoning process in fall of 2018 with both the Planning Commission and Council. And then the overall preliminary subdivision plat, which approved the 6 phases, included 128 single family lots. And I'll show you that here. You can see that on the phasing plan. So the area we're talking about tonight is right here, phase 1, directly behind Bella Sol. And as you know, there was public hearings and there was quite a lot of information shared and back and forth. One of the things that was required is phase 1 right here that we're talking about tonight next to Bella Sol is limited to 20 feet in height. So that was agreed to by the developer. Sullivan Homes was the developer at that time. They've sold it to New Wave Homes or Construction. They're well aware of that restriction as well and have agreed to it. So a 20-foot maximum height for phase 1, all 21 lots here. We talked about the plats. Each subdivision plat will be reviewed by city council. By planning commission, and a recommendation made to city council for final plat approval. That will be reviewed and required before they can actually record plats. I wanted to talk for a minute about ingress and egress to the subdivision. So as you can see, I can scroll this over. Anyways, so we have Rachel Drive right here in the corner where my cursor is. Affirmation, they're putting in the stub or connection of Affirmation Drive, which is going to be a collector 60 feet wide or so that's going to provide access to other developments going east. But they have to put this segment in for phase one. Then they're putting their public road in, Whirlaway Trail. It connects up to this connection that connects into Bella Sol, which is Northtown Road. All public roads, curb and gutter, sidewalk. And so those improvements are required and will be put in place, as they will be for every phase of this plat, the public improvements that they'll be responsible for by recording the plat. And then the city will accept them once they meet all of our standards. But just a small portion of Affirmation there is in place or is being required with phase one to get to those lots. We're talking about public streets and roadway dedications, so they will be required to be dedicated as public roads each phase. The building setbacks, I just wanted to list them here because they're varied. We have specific setbacks for 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, and 10,000 square foot lots. Anything greater than 10,000 just meets the R110 type of requirement. Building height for all homes located in phase one is limited to 20 feet. This was agreed upon quite some time ago. Culinary water availability, as you've heard, this is, front and center. It's been talked about a lot the last year, and just recently it's been talked about even more. With the Conservancy District, they have to provide a will serve letter or other verified documentation from the Conservancy District. Secondary water is required for all outdoor water use. That system is being put in place. Parcels A and B, and I will let Jared speak to this, but you see parcel A right here and parcel B right there. Those are being dedicated to the city for water, power, sewer, and storm drain purposes. We also have another public easement in this area that is located between lots 11 and 12 in this area, and I'll let Jared speak to that. And then with each phase of the project, we want a dust control plan. A lot of work's been going on out there, but we always worry about spring and summer when it gets hot with those south winds. It's a large scale development. We want to make sure that the dust is kept down, especially for our existing residents. We have not received any comments from the neighborhood or responses. As you know, meetings in the past in 2018, 2020 were very well attended for this item by a number of neighbors. I didn't include the minutes, but the item went on for a long time and there was a lot of testimony and comment. That was one of the concessions to make sure phase one was all 1 story or 20-foot building height max. All our reviewing departments, including the building department, parks and recreation, police and fire, power, and public works, are in favor of the project and final plat moving forward, subject to their typical requirements. We have met Utah Code Section 524202, which has the requirements for subdivision plats and how we have to hold a public meeting and post an agenda. We are in compliance with that. Planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for final plat approval for the Solis Phase 1 subdivision, subject to the conditions as outlined in the report. Now, 1 and 2 are very standard. 3 is for this because it's in the the mixed lot size zone. So specific to this plat, phase 1 being limited to 20 feet in height. The will serve letter or other verification. Parcels A and B being dedicated to the city for water, power, sewer, and storm drainage. Item 7, Matt and the engineer asked that we add a condition here that the city council approve the abandonment of the 3 easements associated with the final subdivision plat. We have some existing easements in place for utilities that have to be vacated. And then there's an Old Town Plat Road abandonment easement as well. Hopefully Jared has been brought up to speed on those because I know Alan knew about it. And then the applicant provides the dust control plan. So the abandonment of the easements is a city council issue. That's an issue that they will handle prior to considering the final plat approval on this item or approving it. And that's something our city attorney, Matt Entz, is working on to have the paperwork prepared for when this goes to planning commission for them to consider that abandonment. And so we are recommending the approval and that you forward that recommendation to the council. That's what I have to present this evening on this. And one of the engineers, Jared Bates, is here this evening. If you have other questions, as you may. Thank you.
Commission members, you have any questions that you'd like to address?
I do. The 20-foot height limit, is that contained in the CCNRs? Was that supposed to be noted on the plat?
I don't know if there's a plat note on it, but I know it's in the CCNRs. The builders are very aware of it. It keeps coming up. It is something maybe we could add as a note if we don't have it. I thought it.
I
we
didn't,
might
I
have.
was glancing through the notes and didn't see anything about it.
Okay. I have no problem with adding that as.
It wasn't in the plat.
Yeah. So we added number 7 because that note was incorrect, and that's the requirements of setbacks for each lot size. And then we've got the PUE, so that could be a plat note number 9. Jared, right here, number 9, that says all buildings in phase 1, or the building height for all homes in phase 1 is limited to 20 feet. I think that note would be good to add. I mean, everyone we've talked to, the group, Dustin, who's not here tonight, Mr. Gar, and the others are all very aware of that 20-foot height restriction for this space. But I like adding that note. Come on up and tell them your name and address.
Jared Bates with Rosenberg Associates. I live in St. George. So on that note, so 20-foot height, is that measured from, this always comes up. Is it measured from the back of the curb? What are we looking, what are you talking about exactly? Cody, maybe you can help us out. Just for that note, in case, you know, because it always comes up.
Typically I'd see the pad elevation, but I've seen finished floor as well. So
Okay.
as long as we're consistent, I wasn't part of the previous conversation when that restriction or the agreement was made. So I don't know what they agreed to. The safe bet would be pad elevation.
Or like, if you say finished floor, then, I mean, typically the pad is.
Well, basements are prohibited, so.
Right, so they're not gonna be enormously high unless there's.
Slab on grade construction.
Yeah, it's all slab on
because of
grade.
Yeah,
drainage.
slab on grading at 20 feet, you'd be pressed to get 2 stories, so.
Yeah, so if they said based on the finished pad elevation, which would be above the top back of the curb, so even if they stuck 20 feet from the back of the curb, as a builder, they'd be fine because you'd be.
Well, that we have the pad elevation set.
Oh, the finished floor elevations too. Yeah, the pads are set.
They've got them set right here for each lot. Well, the ones that are adjacent to the floodway or the previous flood
That's
corridor.
finished floor though, that's not pad.
Oh, okay.
Because usually finished floor is usually like 6 inches or 4 inches.
I wish that was pad.
Yeah, I get that too. So, yeah, maybe let's just think about if you want to say from the finished pad elevation, but the finished pad is something that you can go out there and you can see the pad. I mean, who's gonna regulate this? Is it gonna be you?
Yes.
So
Maybe
Me,
the residents in Bella Sol that.
I'll be out there. I'll be out there measuring, and you know how I measure. If I think it's wrong, let me see it.
Sorry, isn't there a code probably that how-
Did you know Logan was this? I was taught this by a retired assistant city engineer for LA County for 35 years, second in command for LA County. He would measure things. This dollar bill is 6 inches long.
Right.
Okay, so you can take that dollar bill and go like that and measure your building height if we have to. I got a long reach and a ladder. So.
and take a look.
I'm just wondering how you,
Typically, like,
Illustration.
wondering how you got that dollar bill. I don't.
You know,
know.
That's right. I've got a few of them.
I can't say that we've ever heard a determination on whether it was from.
I think it's from top back of curb, but that's really up to Cody. That's the way I've heard it
No,
before.
No,
So,
'cause we like to have a foot on top back of curb, at
yeah,
least to the mean, so,
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be tricky because the residents we don't want them coming out and calling us and telling us it's too high. You agreed to 20 feet. Let's just do the 20 feet.
well, I'm just
So-
wondering, there's gotta be I was seeing there's a code that defines how the height's measured of a building.
Yeah.
I was
Well-
looking there, I was looking in here, just in the R110A, whatever code, and it does talk about height regulations, but it also doesn't
Didn't spell it.
say where it's measured from.
Right, and sometimes that's in building code and others. I've seen different definition of building height, and I would lean, I would go to Cody, our building official.
Because sometimes I don't know, this might be what Jared's getting to. Sometimes building heights are measured mid roof pitch or whatever. They're not measured to the very extent. They're measured
Because someone's gonna
like,
come up, someone's gonna have a question and we want to be like, gosh, okay, here's our answer based on the plat or whatever you think. I mean.
Yeah, Logan, we have definition. It's dated, but it's under definitions on how to measure. I think it's,
so wouldn't that be what would apply? It's based on
it's to the highest point.
to the height.
Then it
Yeah,
goes
the
into different
highest point.
styles of roof. But it's the determining whether it's finished floor or pad. And when I get the architectural drawings, it's from finished floor. Rarely do I see anything from pad because they take,
You
the
don't
floor
know,
up.
so you can just,
I mean, you're talking down here with slab on grade, you're talking 4 to 6 inches difference.
right,
Yeah,
but yeah, if I just said, maximum building heights are 20 feet as measured from finished floor to the highest point on the structure, then there's no question, and then no one's bugging you, and then no one's trying to sneak by something either, unless you want them to, that's different too, if you're.
Put it in ink on that plat.
yeah, we
Yeah.
will. Cody and I can work on that highest point of structure, but with varied roof pitches and most current designs, my neighbor's home and my home and another one across the street were built a couple of years ago. They're all around 19 to 19.6 because they're Ramblers. They're right on 20. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
typical depending on the roof pitch with the tile roof. I mean, that's a Rambler. So,
Yeah, no, I think.
yeah.
So yeah, so you guys will come up with an answer.
I'm fine with finished floor.
Okay,
Yeah.
finished floor.
And that's what we're referencing on the pad elevation.
Yeah, those are there too. So,
So that's
okay,
consistent.
okay, cool. We'll make that note. That should be fine. Any other questions for me on anything? Cool.
Mission.
Thanks, I think.
Thanks.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I have one question, just because I wasn't around, look at this at 2018. It's not necessarily for Jared, but I seen the preliminary plat. The whole project meets those percentages for lot sizes that they have in the code.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll let Jared.
Based on my recollection, yes, that was a point that came.
Because this seems like there's extra 7,000 square feet than 20% or whatever. So I assume over the whole project.
That's what I understand, yes. And I think part of it is because of the limitations with the ground that's here in the wash, and yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay.
There is a note about the letter of map revision that you worked on, Jared, on this plat.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the area there. So that's good because some things were built without that letter of map revision. For Solus, we know that that's been approved. So, yeah.
Okay, anything else? We good? Do I have a recommendation from the commission?
I'll move that we recommend the city council to approve the final plat for Saw subdivision phase 1 located off Northtown Road and Rachel Drive.
I'll second, subject to the conditions
Oh, yes.
listed in the staff report.
Good, I have a first from Logan and a second from Shelley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, carries.
Does it matter that this still shows the prior developer on these plans that we have that we're looking at?
Which sheets, Shelley?
14 hands and on page 4 of the and Sean Sullivan.
I wouldn't think so. That's the approved preliminary plat.
Oh, yes, so that wouldn't change.
Okay,
The final plat would show the current ones.
okay.
Well, this is the preliminary, okay.
Yeah, the preliminary is down here as part of the application, but the final plat's been updated, right, Jared?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it won't be Sullivan Homes. It's New Wave Construction.
And it's likely to be something different before it finishes.
You bet.
Welcome to St. George.
Sullivan could come back. You never know. Ents,
I actually tried to buy this from Sean.
Did you?
It's a great piece. Glad to see it go forward. I love the sizes and
It's going to be nice. I'm excited for the number of new homes.
good one.
And as you know, there's also a townhome component
Yeah.
of 56 units. So,
That's actually why we want.
yeah. Yeah. It sounded like they were going to build a few phases of the single family homes before they got to the townhomes. So we'll see how that all works out. So, all right.
Thank you, sir. Easy tonight. All right, moving on to our discussion items. We have subdivision ordinance updates from Jim.
Thank you. You may or may not know, the city has been working on an update to the city construction design standards for approximately 8 months. Logan Blake, licensed PE from our planning commission, who is present tonight on the dais, was part of our committee that included other engineers and geotechnical engineers in the area, as well as city staff. I just want to thank Logan for his hard work on this. The city construction design standards were actually adopted by city resolution just last night. And Logan was very vital in that. He helped us with some new road cross sections, as well as some other drawings that needed really to be updated in that document. So we're very appreciative of that. Since that time, for the last couple of months, I've been working with the city attorney, and the mayor has brought this up, as well as others. Since we're updating the city construction design standards, we need to update Title 16 subdivisions, as well as there's a short section, Chapter 1704 general provisions, where we want to have some things that make reference to Title 16, the subdivision ordinance. So we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 months. If you recall, back in November or December, I said this was coming. I didn't have a draft to share. I was hoping I had something to share, but Matt and Mayor Rosenberg decided to spend a little more time on this as they were working with other communities, as well as the state. There's a lot going on up on the Hill right now, and quite a bit has gone on in the past. So what I want to do is just talk about the requirements. I also want to let you know that I didn't include in the memo because I was pretty brief, but we had a discussion with the city council a week ago, Wednesday on February 1st, during their work meeting on this particular item to bring them up to speed on it. And I'd just like to go through it. A lot of this is just some cleanup and updates. But if you will just let me go through the main items here. I'm sorry I have to scroll through this. So approval of subdivision plats. This is just general cleanup. We're calling it a concept plan rather than a sketch plan. Old terminology. Everybody refers to a concept plan now. We don't really get the sketch plans. I mean, there may be some communities and some that do that still, but it's not anything I've done for a while now. So just changing it to a concept. And then step 3 is our preliminary plat. Just updating, just a little bit of cleanup, and then referring to the concept here, which is the step before the preliminary plat. And then as we get down to the final plat, which is right here, step 4. So that's just kind of our overall process, and that's very general. So preliminary plat, we wanted to make some changes here. And this is the language I've worked on with our city attorney, Matt Entz. We've added to preliminary plats, and then we've added a new section on approval procedure. So we talk about preparation of preliminary plat. We added, it's anticipated that if the preliminary plat complies with all requirements of this title, upon final approval of the preliminary plat shall be the basis for the construction drawings and final plat. Prior to preparing the preliminary plat, the applicant shall meet with the technical review committee, TRC, to discuss the subdivision proposal and review the preliminary plat and the requirements for the required plans, construction drawings, studies, and reports. The general requirements as to the layout of streets, street improvements, traffic impact studies, drainage, sewage, fire protection, availability of existing services, and similar matters will be discussed. So that's an addition that we didn't have in our subdivision ordinance. And then we've added an F and a G. At the time of filing an application, the applicant shall schedule an appointment with the city. The city shall review the application for completeness and shall require that the applicant and owner, if different, provide an acknowledgement that they are responsible for obtaining a culinary water will serve letter or the equivalent from the Washington County Water Conservancy District. So this is something that's been in the works for a while. St. George City's made changes that has language similar, Washington City as well. Others may have it in process, but we're just trying to update to what is going on right now. And then I referenced the other section. This requirement is in Chapter 1704 General Provisions. We request that the applicant, all we can, present additional information to assist in determining the adequacy, quality, and characteristics of subdivision proposal. G, once the application has been considered and determined to be complete, the application shall be reviewed according to the procedures set forth by this chapter. If the city finds that the application is incomplete, the application shall be rejected, returned to the applicant, and the applicant shall submit a complete application. So, scrolling down to finish off this section, we have some new language here on approval procedure. So we get into the preliminary plat and the preliminary review and accompanying plans, reports, and studies. Then B, after preliminary plat review is found to meet the requirements of this title and all comments, the planning manager or designee shall cause the plat to be placed on the next available PC agenda. So that's process. Planning Commission shall only recommend approval of preliminary plat, which it finds to be in accordance with our standards and criteria. So it talks a little bit about that. And then after reviewing the preliminary plat, the PC shall make a recommendation to the council that the preliminary plat be approved, conditionally approved, or disapproved. And then the plat would be placed on the next available city council agenda. And then we talk about upon approval of the preliminary plat and approval of construction drawings, a permit may be issued, which allows the applicant to be construction. That's very similar to Solus that, excuse me, we're reviewing the final plat tonight. But they've been doing site work for that entire site for a year or so. So we do allow them to work on those horizontal improvements or public improvements before they record a plat.
Do you issue a grading permit for that work?
We do. And then we also grant approval of the construction drawings. They have to submit all the detailed construction drawings. And we go through a process with our TRC, everybody approving or redlining those. And then if they're incorrect, they have to resubmit and address the red lines. And then we've added some new language on extensions because this is what we're being told to do from the Conservancy District. The mayor is involved in water board committees and groups and wants to make sure that we're compliant. It says no extension will be granted to any applicant unless the applicant first submits documentation evidencing that the Conservancy District has consented to the extension of applicant's will serve letter consistent with the extension sought from the city. So right up above, we talk about extensions. No longer than 1 year, a second extension not to exceed 1 additional year may be granted. We realize that some preliminary plats may only be 25 or 30 lots, but some may be huge, like Solus tonight, could be 120 lots, could be 200 lots. We understand that, and they're going to take that down a phase at a time. So, you know, letting them have some more time as needed or necessary. But we understand that if it's a large preliminary plat, that overall approval would be entitled because we know they're subphasing the plat as they move forward. Approval of preliminary plat does not constitute full approval of the development nor vest any development rights, as additional requirements may be imposed that are a result of more detailed and thorough review of all plans, specification, reports, and investigations. So final plat, we've just added the approval procedure there too. We've just, you know, it's very general cleanup. Not a lot has been changed. It's mainly all cleanup. This item right here, Matt, to provide checklist language. That was caught by council last week, and I'm waiting on that language for Matt before it comes back to you and goes to the council. So that's something he's working on right here for our checklist of items for a final plat. Just updating that. And then right here, we want to make sure this does happen, but we want to make sure that it's in our ordinance for any subdivision in a PD zone. A fully executed original copy of the CCNRs anticipated to be recorded with the plat shall be submitted to the city for verification. The original will be returned to the applicant for recording when the final plat is released. So that allows Matt Entz and myself to go through those CCNRs to make sure that items that were required, maybe as conditions or amenities or different things are in that document. Approval procedure.
Hey, Jim, I just noticed some, are you guys planning on removing the term? No, we did other design standards, the term city engineer and do city representative or something.
Does it say city engineer in
I
here?
just saw it a few times in the.
Okay, so let me write that down and I'll talk to Matt about that next week. So the first one, it refers to city engineer, but we need to put city rep. Okay. Just like our construction standards. Yeah. Thanks, Logan. I can go through and look at that. This is very similar to what you just saw for preliminary plat. Matter of fact, we decided the final plat shall be required to go through the same approval process as the preliminary plat as per section 1616-070, which we just thoroughly went through. We're making reference to that same requirement here. We talk about state code, and then a final plat must be recorded with the office of the county recorder within 1 year of the date of city approval. This includes a final plat, which is a phase of the project. This entitles the preliminary plat. A final plat which has not been recorded within 1 year shall be deemed void, and all land use approvals associated with the final plat shall be considered void ab initio. Prior to expiration, an applicant may request a one-time 6-month extension of approval to the planning department. The item shall be placed on the next available city council agenda. So that term, ab initio, means that they'll start over again. It's a very legal term. Matt put that in there for us, but St. George has used that term as well if you go through their ordinance. So design standards, let me just scroll through this. It might be more simple if I just go page by page. One thing we did do here in this section, and Logan will recognize this, we make reference to arterial, collector, and local streets. And then we make reference to the actual width of the road that we just changed in our construction standards for the roads. So the arterial is 45, the collector's 49, and the local street is 35. And we know that there are some deviations from that. You know, there's some hybrids, but this is our typical or norm. We would refer right to those construction standards if there's any question.
Once again, we're getting the value of your experience to take these things to the proper ends and means that they should be.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We have guarantee amounts. So if I scroll back up, oh, don't freeze on me. Here we go. If I scroll back up, this is another thing we've been talking about with city staff is, oh, dang it, guarantees. So posting the bonds and having this right. So performance guarantees. So we have made some changes to here, to this section. So the guarantee shall be in the form of an improvement agreement approved by the city council from time to time, plus an escrow bond or cash guarantee for the amount required by this chapter. So we are going with a escrow bond or cash bond, not a letter of credit or a surety bond. This is what we are seeing, an escrow or a cash guarantee. And so that question was asked by the council last week, and that's the answer that was given. Does that concern the planning commission at all? Okay.
So what was their hang up with letters
Page
of
you
credit?
go on.
I'm sorry. This one right here, guarantee form, which it says 32 of 51 in the
Okay.
packet.
What was the council's hang up with letters of credit?
Do you remember, Cody? I'm trying to remember that question specifically about the letter of credit. Matt addressed it. I can't remember his answer.
I remember, I know Lena had asked about it.
'Cause she works for a bank.
Yeah, asked why, and Matt said that his experience he hadn't seen a letter of credit in a number of years, and so.
And she said they do very few. I mean, they do some on occasion for other communities, but hasn't seen them here in Santa Clara. Most are escrow or cash.
Yeah.
Most of what she sees is escrow.
We do them all the time for other.
Letter of credit.
That's what I
Okay.
said. I think that's what our company uses most exclusively.
Letters of credit?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we used on our commercial development on Tonnequin, was a letter of credit from Zions Bank.
Okay. what I'll do is I just wrote this down and that's coming from you guys. I'll discuss this with Matt when I sit down with him next week and we go through it. I'll see if we can want to put that back in there. Letter of credit. Surety's not going back. It wasn't in here, but I've had experience with trying to draw on a surety during the recession. And they make a living on not
Spend more
paying
money
up.
on fees.
took us 2 years to get some funds to complete a water tank system. And we were lucky we got anything.
Spend
So,
more money on the
yeah.
fees.
yeah. So, okay, I will bring that back up with Matt. I've got this 1628020. We can discuss that one more time. And then the guarantee amount, we had 125% legislation has passed where we cannot, the guarantee amount shall be 100% of the cost of the improvements as set forth in the project engineer's estimate. This should be capitalized here, that the estimate shall be required to include A, 5% administrative cost, B, 10% contingency, and C, engineering and quality assurance testing costs. So we can require those costs, but just the guarantee amount, we can only require the 100%, not the 125. And so Matt went through state code and was very clear there because I said, I'm not sure we can do that because I think it either changed to 100% or 110, and actually it's 100%. So you may be aware of that. So that language is compliant with state code. We wanted to make sure that was in there. And then right here, item C1, the owner shall submit to the city a request for payment against the guarantee showing to whom and for what amount the release is requested. The request shall include an updated engineer's estimate for completion of the remaining improvements. And so this gets a partial release type thing, and then giving us a new estimate if they request that. So. And then here we have the city reserves the right to require updated engineers' estimates of the remaining improvements and additional security if needed every 6 months in the event that no partial releases are requested. Here we say city and approved by the city engineer or public works director. I'm going to have to talk to Matt again if we just want to put city representative there in those places. You can see we've struck all of these old formats. We don't think they're needed or necessary anymore. It's just too much. And so we're, trying to simplify and just be consistent and be transparent. Chapter 1632. We did have the section on building on unsubdivided parcels. And this is one we wanted to make a change to. Cody, who's with us tonight, has had a few concerns on this item, the building on unsubdivided parcel. We've changed it to 1 unit can be built on an unsubdivided parcel prior to subdivision plat recordation. However, all utilities and improvements must be completed or performance guarantee given prior to building permit issuance. If performance guarantee is given for improvements, then a certificate of occupancy will only be issued upon completion. And so that's what city staff and Matt, this is what we're comfortable at this point changing it to. The council seemed to be accepting of this change. Cody, did you have anything to add on this one?
I'm just not fond of it. I wouldn't care if it just went away, but
This is for like builders that want to put a model before the
Yep.
building their model before the subdivision's done. Is that what?
yeah, and it's just
Home
problematic.
show home or a model without full improvements. If they just have the lot, they could do a home, right? Cody?
Yeah, say there's a 5 or 10 acre parcel and someone wanted to put a home on that without putting in a bunch of infrastructure and developing all the acreage. This would be an area that he could use in the ordinance to move that forward. Otherwise, what you see most commonly is someone that wants to start because it was a legal lot of record prior to the subdivision. So they're entitled to one model home, which a true model to me is, I refer to Brio often. Brio built 5 model homes. It was exactly that. They did not sell them. They staged them. They had the different architectural styles, finishings, colors, all for you could walk through and I like that, I like that, I like that on all 5. And then they built their subdivision out and those are the last 5 homes to sell. most commonly what we see is a model home built and about 4-way, 6-way inspection. All of a sudden it's a spec. There's a for sale sign on it.
Sold it.
And then then you're shuffling parcel numbers. It just adds a lot of confusion on our side and on the county side. And so I feel that if someone wants to take down 10 acres and subdivide it, then that use should be dissolved in that when you start pulling permits, it's under the subdivision parcel and you're substantially complete at that point with all the infrastructure and development. So the truth is yeah, if it just dissolved, I wouldn't care, but
But then
we came up with this with,
would that get rid of the ability for someone to do a Brio sort of thing?
With 5 model homes.
Well, at
If
least
anyone
I'm
did
not
it.
saying 5, but like at least one.
I just don't know. Like I say, I've been in the area. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I rarely see it. Brio is the last one that I remember seeing that truly meets the intent. Even the parade homes, they're for sale. They're for sale through construction. They're for sale through the parade.
Yeah, I remember, it's a good point, you know, where we built a home about 6 years ago before moving here, it was Fieldstone and, they built a couple models and those models were sold before the phase, by the end of that phase. And then the next phase, they weren't model homes anymore. Yeah. You know, I mean, they just were sold like any home in the subdivision.
One of the challenges, and I'll just share a couple experiences on why I dislike them. One is right here in the city, and then 2 from my previous experience. But they go and they bond and record, which allows the developer to sell lots. And then as soon as someone owns a lot, you're getting pressure. They want to start building without curb and gutter slipped, without an all-weather surface. You don't have EMS. So you work with them to get to the levels where they have fire suppression and EMS response. And then it started and your finished floor elevations below top back of curb. Or you've missed setbacks. And they say, well, we'll stake them. Well, I went through 2 that I can take you to right now that they were staked, and both of them, it doesn't happen often, but both of these 2, one missed setbacks, the other one missed elevation. So I had one with negative grade back towards the home, and the other one I had to make a concession on the side setback. And the one you're probably most familiar with is the home at lot 300 in the hills. They let them get started, and the list is lengthy on the misses on that, on letting them get started. Both, well, setbacks is marginal, but the elevation was a bust. And then in that particular case, the funding went away, developer issues. And so we had that thing and we looked at it for 3 years. Is it fair to the community? Is it fair to the neighbors? Single family residential homes, did they buy into that? I don't feel they did. So
And we're still
I would-
dealing with it
And we're
today.
still dealing with it today.
Came to TRC today.
You know, we're still dealing with it, spending taxpayer money conversating about this subdivision that's just been problematic. So that's where I get my heartburn.
So Cody, I have a question for you about that. So you present a pretty good case against putting this in here. What would be the benefits of leaving it in here? Why would we leave it in there?
Well, we groomed it. If you read it, it's groomed to fit the guy that owns 10 acres that wants to put a house out there and utilize that legal lot of record that's been there since they pulled chains on it and laid it out. It allows that guy to build without, he still has to, or he or she still has to get all the utilities there and may have to do some infrastructure and some curb and gutter on the frontage.
To get to the home, yeah.
But yeah, it allows that to remain under.
However, all utilities and improvements must be completed, gives you some
Right,
relief to the having it added.
yeah.
Just vetting it, the language with Matt, he thought it was better and more enforceable this way versus what's currently in the code.
But I mean, right now we have the point going. I'm very nervous about that. With the slowdown, we see the slowdown, we feel the slowdown coming. We have a lot of the underground infrastructure in. I think most of it's in, but we're a long way from finaling out that subdivision. And I've got a very large building permitted and coming out of the ground that we used the previous ordinance. We couldn't tell them no. I would have loved to.
Your hands were tied.
I drug my feet as long as I could.
And
We are,
water,
we are seeing a slow, there's no question.
yeah,
But
hopefully not. I mean, that's
Not like we've
assisted
seen in the
living
past.
facility. I hope they continue
not
on
like we've
that.
seen in the past.
Yeah,
We're seeing-
yeah.
But I mean, you look at the Solus, you approved or recommended phase one to be passed on. If they bonded, recorded, then they could start selling lots, and under the old ordinance, I could issue a model home permit. But just like the Hills, if they don't come in and they don't finish that, then we have a homeowner that's upset. He doesn't have a road. We're battling utilities because the utilities won't come in until the subdivision is installed and passed off. So that's the same right now in the Hills. We have now we have homeowners that want to move in. They don't have communications. We struggled to get them gas. It was the last minute to get them power. So I mean, the list goes on and on. So
That's
why
why
do
we're
we,
making these changes in the
Yeah.
construction standards and better identifying these things.
so that's to answer your question. It's just for singling out that one property owner that may want to utilize all of his property and not go through the subdivision process.
And does that happen pretty frequently?
No,
No,
But we're running out of, first of all, we're at the
There's no
point
big
in
parcels.
the bounds of the city limits that I can only think.
maybe
of
once a
parcels
year, or twice a year at the most.
Right off the
Yeah.
top of my head.
Yeah.
So
Logan, can you think of more?
so my question, I guess, the follow-up to that is why wouldn't we just remove that? Is that something the city attorney says needs to be left in there, or why is?
My understanding is they want to leave a provision in, and mayor's been involved in that discussion as well. So
yeah, we could, I mean, Brock's been vocal. He wouldn't care if it went away. So
it could,
we
it
could
may
look at
come
it
up
one more
when this,
time with some of these other
Right.
changes.
it's just a discussion right now. It could go away, but right now it's still in there. So I'd like to go through chapter 17. This kind of cross references and kind of makes everything work between the two sections. We're adding a 1704-35030, which is land use decision and water acknowledgement required. So again, with the water. And then we're adding vesting and expiration as well. And a lot of that has to do with water. So land use decision and water acknowledgement required. I don't know if I can move that. Yes, I can.
So can I ask, right, but this, so just in my mind, I'm thinking, so right now at the Hills, if you've got this vesting period of 1 year, would that help you given your situation with the Hills right now? Being able to clean up the mess you've got or not? So, well, I mean, if we're tying these things in and we're saying, if it's not done within a year, it cancels, you gotta start over.
Yeah,
Does that help with?
it would, not with the current situation, because we're dealing with current, but to avoid it again, yes, that's why we're doing a lot of this, to avoid that from happening again. That is correct.
So, because I can't say anything right now while we're on the record.
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. The vesting and the cancellation after application, and say they haven't put a shovel in the ground, no harm, no foul. Once they start and start putting in infrastructure and roads, that's where it becomes problematic. They're bonded, but the city doesn't want to get in the habit of being the developer.
That's not what you're here for.
No, and we wouldn't do it well. Well, maybe better than some, but yeah, it's a bad use of resource that the fine citizens of Santa Clara are paying for.
So let me go through this and then we'll get to that
Sorry.
vesting. No, we're gonna get to that
My
vesting
brain's
section.
just-
So a interpretation of the zoning ordinance, any use of land that is not plainly designated as a permitted use or conditional use shall be reviewed and decided on by the city council following a recommendation by the planning commission. So right now, as you know, in the commercial zone, if there's something that isn't identified as a permitted or conditional use, you guys can look at it and make a decision, because that doesn't go to the city council. And then in the PDC zone, we can look at those uses, and that does go to the city council. So in this case, we're going to have it so both a commercial designation, if it's not cut and dry. I like permitted uses and conditional uses, but the council wants to leave a little wiggle room for that exception if it's something that's not identified. So that's the reason behind the language here. Land use decision required, no development may commence or land use change or expanded without a final land use decision, which determines that the development or the change or expansion is allowed in the zone and complies with all land use regulations. C, water acknowledgement required. All new land use applications must submit with the application an acknowledgement signed by both the applicant, developer, and the owners of all real property which are part of the application. That one, the applicant is responsible for ensuring that the project or application has sufficient culinary water service. And two, approval of any development application by the city does not guarantee that sufficient water will be available to serve the zone, project, or permit for which the application is submitted. And so you probably saw a form that was included in the Solus application. That's the form that they have to sign. And then we also have to get the will serve letter or other acknowledgement from the Conservancy District. And so we have that. Ours is very similar to St. George. Is Thad Segmiller, who I know pretty well, is the city attorney for Washington. They have one now. All three are very similar in nature. Perhaps Hurricane has one. Logan would know that if they have that in place yet. So there's that section. The rest is just really just updates. Very, very simple until we get to the end section here, where we have some changes to the language. Am I back in? Did it go to?
You're on page you're going to page 50, I think.
Yeah, it went backwards for some reason. I'm sorry about that. That's weird. I'll just use the arrows.
You were on 43, Jim.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is where I wanted to go. This is the new section, 1704-220, vesting and
Page 50.
expiration. So a vesting process. A completed land use application shall be entitled to substantive review and process under the land use regulations in effect at the time the application is complete. A completed application requires that all information necessary for a final decision has been provided to the land use authority and all fees have been paid. 2, uses and density. A land use application shall not be considered formally approved or vested in that approval until the land use authority has approved the final site plan, final construction drawings, or final plat. Expiration, recognizing that the length of the planning, building, and engineering review process will vary with the size and complexity of each proposal. Applicants must move their application either to approval or denial in a reasonably expeditious manner. The city may formally close applications which remain inactive for 1 year or longer due to the acts or omissions of the applicant. 1, an application is deemed inactive and subject to closure based on inactivity if, through the act or omission of the applicant and not the city, one of the following occurs. A, more than 1 year has passed since the last substantive contact between staff and the applicant. Sporadic, non-substantive contact shall not be sufficient to move an application forward or prevent closure. B, more than 1 year has passed since a request for additional information was made by staff, which request has either not been complied with or was incomplete or insufficient. The applicant is more than 30 days in default of the payment of any fee assessed or required by ordinance. D, the applicant has informed the city of intent to abandon the application. Item 2, when the designated planning, building, or engineering staff member determines an application is inactive, the application file may be closed. A, no application may be closed based on inaction without giving 30 calendar days written notice to the applicant. Written notice may be delivered in person, by mail, or by email. Such notice must state the intent of the respective department to have the project closed because of inaction and what the applicant must submit in a timely manner to maintain an active file. And B, applicants who fail to provide a full and complete response shall not prevent closure if the requested information or submissions are sufficient, untimely, or incomplete. So that's a new section that Matt and I have been working on, and we feel that's needed to the ordinance. So what are your thoughts on that? It does require us to reach out to them and give them written notice and gives them opportunity to update the project itself. But
Does the clock basically start again if the applicant reaches out or whatever? Does it?
yeah, I mean, if they reach out to us and don't let it expire, we can work with them to proceed. It's going to be case by case. If we have something that's just sat a long time, we have one, the edge of Grand Desert. That's been sitting for a while. Patrick Manning and a Mr. Hayes from way up north in Cache County were involved in that, the two owners. They have agreed to disagree and can't get along, and they're looking to sell it now. And we've had a lot of developers and attorneys call us in the last year about that. The development agreement entitles the property and it's still in play. You know, it's got like a 20-year life to it. But that preliminary approval that was granted in May of 2021, overall preliminary for the project, then Patrick Manning came and asked, maybe that was 20 and then 21. He asked for a 1-year extension in May of 2021, which expired in May of 2022. So now that preliminary plat or overall plan, it starts over again. And they've known that. That's just clear. They've known that. They have to, but they're looking to sell it and somebody new is going to come in. They're not going to develop it. It'll be somebody different. But that expired and they knew that expired. They even asked for a 1-year extension. They got it. But now it's been 18, 20 months, you know, going on 2 years this May. So it's expired.
But you said their development agreements still good?
Yeah, that has a development agreement in place. And so Matt says that that's still in place. That's the entitlement. They do have a development agreement, you know, that is recorded in place. I don't know if it has a 20-year life or a 30-year life, unless they come in and ask that the development agreement be amended, you know, replaced, whatever. A new group could ask for, you know, for us to consider a new development agreement. But that development agreement is still good, just like Black Desert's development agreement is good. They usually have like a 30-year window.
So can you remind me, like, so the project comes in, that's a phased plan, and say they built like the first phase and the remaining, I don't know, 2, 3, whatever phases aren't going as fast. Does this 1 year apply to that sort of thing?
No, because I read earlier in the language in Title 16 that overall preliminary plat, you know, once you record a final plat, it is still subject to that original preliminary approval. With that grants more time because we know that's a work in progress and they're sub-phasing it. So that overall preliminary isn't going to time out unless nothing's happening at all anywhere at some point in time. But once they record a plat or a phase like Solus is doing, you know, the shot clock stops because they're progressively or actively working on the project. We understand that it's 6 phases. This is phase 1. Phase 2 is coming soon, and phase 3. You know, it's hard if the market changes again. You know, I've heard the R word. I've heard just a small bump, maybe a small recession. Is nothing like 08 and 09, but kind of a reset is what they're saying is the word I've heard them using. We'll see. But right now we're not anticipating anything like that, like 08 and 09. That was a tough time. So, yeah.
But like, so you're saying if something did where it took longer than a year for the next phase to get constructed, that would probably be okay with a preliminary plat? I'm just asking
Again,
personally.
that's something, you know, we've got it in writing here and we have to look at each case on its own merits, case by case, and determine if progress has been made. If no progress has been made and we all agree to it, then it's probably going to expire. But if they're actively talking to us and working with us and making progress, we're going to work with them.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I know on your projects, Logan, you're probably very active with the city on behalf of your clients. But we have some that aren't.
I had a situation like this where I've preliminary platted a few phases out and those projects are going real slow now. I could see a year before the next phase gets built or more.
Yeah. Yeah. And we understand that.
Especially
You know,
takedown projects, right?
yeah. Our situation, you know, our dynamics and, you know, who we have employed here and our elected officials and others understand that. And that's something we would take a close look at. We wouldn't just make a hasty decision. So we want things to be successful. So that's all I have for tonight.
All very needed.
Yeah. Your comments are good. I've written these down and I'll be discussing these with Matt Entz before we bring it back to you. We would like to bring it back in 2 weeks for a public hearing at your meeting on February 23rd. So look for that. So thank you for the discussion tonight. I wish we would have had everybody here, but this has been very good this evening.
Okay. Anything else we need to discuss or take forward at this time?
Minutes?
Yep, I guess we have the minutes. I need hopefully you've had a chance to review them. And need a motion to approve them from the commission.
I have one question. And it could be just the way I read it, but on page 2, the second paragraph from the bottom, it says the ADU or IADU must be owner occupied to be rented. It's a little bit confusing to me. I mean, I know that one or the other of the units needs to be rented in order to allow for an ADU, but this sort of makes me think, well, the
What
ADU,
page are we on?
page 2.
Page 2, in Dolly Stoner's comments.
Let's see. right
That's,
here.
Yeah,
That's a good catch.
Does it?
And which sentence is it?
So second paragraph from the bottom, the
Dolly
second to the
Stoner.
last
I see it.
sentence.
So what part of the sentence is your concern on this paragraph? What sentence are you reading from?
So the second to the last sentence says the ADU or the IADU must be owner occupied to be rented.
Yeah, that's incorrect. We'll change the language.
The house has to be.
The home has to be owner
Home has to be owner
occupied for them to rent the
property.
ADU.
yeah, either of them can be owner
Yeah.
occupied.
Yeah. Well, the ADU or the ADU is a rental, but the home has to be owner occupied.
I understand that the code said that you could live in the ADU
Yeah.
and rent the home.
Either
You
one.
can. You
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, so they need to reside at that residence
Yeah,
somehow.
I need to look at this closer and just make a more accurate statement there. That's a good catch.
Yeah.
I'll clean it up.
I don't know.
You're
if
right.
That important.
That doesn't happen a ton, but I have seen one or two where someone,
Tried to rent everything.
oh yeah, well, they decided, man, this ADU is pretty sweet. All the money I put into this, I'm gonna live in that, and then I'll rent the rest of the house that needs a remodel out to a family. So it does happen on occasion. So
So I'll move to approve the minutes with just,
that change.
yeah.
Okay. We'll make that change and get it in there.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Shelley to approve with a second from Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
I don't have anything else for this
So
evening, just,
I
yeah.
wasn't here. I just,
yeah,
so did you not approve the zone change for the man caves?
we did not.
Not approved.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
We did not. The recommendation from this body was denial, and then the recommendation council, the same vote, 4-1 was for denial. The concern is it didn't meet the intent of the general plan, and the rezoning criteria was a stretch.
Yeah.
The residents there want single family, and lo and behold, a week later, it didn't even cool down. The applicant and his engineer, Jared Bates, submitted a new general plan amendment to medium density residential with a concept plan of R16. So Bart Smith and the team are going to move forward with a seven lot R16 subdivision, and they think people will buy those, which they will, to build
If
homes.
there's any question?
Because just on the west end of the street before it turns back into Santa Clara, there's 3 new homes. There's 2 in front with that flag lot in the back. Those are nice homes. Before you turn back
And one
up
of them
here on
fifth
Santa Clara.
generation in.
Yeah. So that'll come back to you. So you're going to see that in 2 weeks. But what we've done is we've split this because of the complication and because of what the PD zone requires an applicant to do to get that rezoning. It's very intensive because you got the project plan, the design, all of that to get that entitlement and zoning. We're now going to process a general plan amendment first to get a feel if it's required. And then if that's thumbs up and approved by the planning commission and council, then they can submit their rezoning application. We're not going to do them concurrently. We're going to do them one at a time.
Save some money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just another month, right? We'll do one and then we'll do another, but they're asking for 2 legislative decisions by the city council, right? To make the final decision on that public hearing here, public meeting there. But that's a legislative decision that has to be made to allow for a general plan amendment or a rezoning of property. So they're not easy applications. So
Well, with that, I think we stand adjourned. Thank you all.
thank you. See you in 2 weeks. Yes. Yes, it'll be a public hearing for a general plan amendment to go to from the low density and Main Street commercial to medium density residential with the concept plan of R16, which is the zone they will move towards the following month. But we're being told the residents are in favor of that because that's what they were asking for. They like the idea of single family homes there.
The public hearing sign on the corner of Lava Flow and
Uh-huh.
that is the same.
No,
Santa Clara Drive.
no. So we have the one on the corner of Arrowhead and Lava Flow. And then just right up the street on the corner across from Lammy's on that northeast corner you're referring to. That is the Keith Reber office building. He's a foot and ankle surgeon doctor, so it's going to be a really nice 5,000 square foot office for him and one other practitioner. And then 2 weeks